name's Hope Leonard. I am the Conservation Restoration Coordinator at the Brevard Zoo. Today we are out deploying clams for our clam project here in the IRL. So this project is part of a water quality grant done by St. John's River Water Management and partner with the University of Florida. And so University of Florida provides our clams. Clams naturally have been occurring in the lagoon for a few thousand years, and we know that due to the Ayis. The Ayis are the Native Americans that had the shellmans here, and so you'll find the big mounds of shell that have been excavated in Mel Beach. And so what we found is that the lagoon's very cyclical. So years they'll find oyster shells, oyster shells, oyster shells, and then there'll be years where they found clam shells, clam shells, clam shells in these mounds, and so they are very layered. And so what that tells us is there were years of rainfall and there were years with no rainfall. So the years with no rainfall were the clam years, the years they boomed, which we had clam years here in the IRL in the 80s and 90s. So people talk about how there were clam farmers here and they really just came and raked all throughout the IRL because of the lack of laws and the lack of policing, because they just had 2 boats for the entire IRL, which runs all the way from Volusia County to Indian River County, which is huge. So with that, we kind of had an overfishing issue as well as water quality degradation. So the clam population really kind of dwindled, and at one point was less than 200,000 here in the IRL when we used to see around 9 million towards the clam boom. Today we are putting out Mercenaria, which is the northern quahog. So the northern quahog actually comes here and it meets with the southern quahog. So we do have a lot of hybrids here in the lagoon. The southern quahog, Mercenaria campachensia, was having issues with certain diseases here in the IRL. There were issues with being able to reproduce. And so with the Mercenaria, we know that these clams have been bred from the IRL and have been put back in because they've been specially selected for their traits that make them more able to survive in poorer water quality conditions. We had a small clam bed here at Long Point Park and it did really, really, really well. And so we decided to put some big plots out and test the survivability at a larger scale because of how the smaller one did. So as we deploy clams, we actually go and we measure out the actual individual clams up to 50 and take a small sample and then quantify how many are in each bag. And then with each bed that we put out, so we put out 6 today, so that way we know how many we put on each bed. That way when we come back in a few months, we know how many survived and how much they grew. And so the way we do that is we actually plot out a 15 by 50 foot plot with a net, and then we take the net away, and in that plot that we just staked out, we put the clams down just in the sediment, because this is a reintroduction, not a farming, so they're perfect for hopefully this little lagoon here, and they're gonna thrive and eat the algae and cycle out nutrients and make the water a bit clearer. And so as we put them down, they'll burrow in. We'll put a net over and stake down the net over the clams, and the purpose of the net is to prevent immediate predation. So when they're small, like we're putting them out, they're only about 15 to 20 millimeters, and so that size is perfect for a redfish or a stingray to come up and just scoop up. And so by putting the net down, we actually mimic the natural environment, which would be seagrass beds, and so the rhizomes or roots of the seagrass actually work as a natural net. And because we have so many seagrass issues, we're using some nets to kind of mimic that behavior, and that way we can protect them for up to a year, and then after that year goes by, they'll have enough time to have grown hopefully big enough to be able to protect themselves. As we push for that seagrass to come back, because we really need that seagrass back for the manatees and for all the other creatures that eat seagrass and for the thousands of creatures that use it as habitat, the bivalves that filter water and eat algae will be able to kind of make the water clearer, and that's what the seagrass really needs, is clear water in order to produce energy or photosynthesize. By doing this project, we're trying to just kind of get those clam numbers up and reintroduce those bivalve species that are the natural liver of the river.